Okay, so it's my great pleasure to welcome this lovely fellow, Silvio. So I met Silvio this year in London. We had a conference there, and I met Silvio. And I know he keeps very busy around the program. He's a great guy. I really enjoyed meeting him, and I'm looking forward to hearing his share today. And Silvio's going to speak for about 20 minutes. Over to you, Silvio.
Thank you so much, Patrick. My name is Silvio. I'm a grateful recovered addict. I can't believe how wonderful it is to be here early on a Christmas morning. And I would just love to say Merry Christmas to those people who celebrate, and especially welcome anyone who's struggling right now, who is having a hard time. Saying Gunnar, our friend from Germany, saying that he was struggling a bit. And one of the things before we get into a bit about how I got here and how I got well, one of the things I really love about this program is that not only do I not have to drink or use anymore today, it's just I don't also have to spend a lot of time in pain unless I don't follow the program. That is what it's there for. And I've sat in meetings where I was in heaps of pain for one reason or another, and I'm just so grateful that we have a solution and a program that can address this and address this for me specifically, because the pain that we have is quite specific, I think, as addicts and as alcoholics. Um, it's a funny time around Christmas. I was saying this somewhere else yesterday. It's one of those times where we perhaps have less time for our recovery, meditation, our prayers, and for our practice, and so on. And at the same time, we spend a lot more time with those people who populate our step 10s and, maybe also our step 4. So it can be quite a funny time, but it's also a really good time to sort of just look back a little bit, maybe, and a bit like Christmas, a bit like birthdays as well, where you can look back a little bit and kind of go, have I grown a little bit in the last year? Just a little bit around this bit or that bit. Have I been able to expand my spiritual condition just a little bit? And it's a great way of and always a great moment to sort of just sit for a second and think about that and see what answers come to you. I was the son of Italian immigrants to Germany. So looking different, having a different name, eating different foods, and speaking a different language from early on from the rest of the people around me was something that set me apart. And right from the beginning, I made quite a meal of it. I was always really conscious around this. This was something that was really important to me on the one hand, and on the other hand, it somehow made me feel weird and different. And right from the very beginning, this thing was born, I think. It could have been about something else, but it happened to be around this issue of identity and where do I belong? Am I actually German or Italian? It set a precedent almost for feeling different, feeling other than. And on the one hand, I was really happy and proud of this. This was really important to me. And on the other hand, I very quickly started complaining about being marginalized. And it was the beginning, I think, also of this incredible feature of my illness, of my spiritual malady, which is exceptionalism. I am different. I'm special. I'm different. And this was something that carried through for a long, long time. And wasn't able to articulate or even have any awareness around, of course. And on top of this sort of feeling different, I also have a really strong voice in my head, which will keep feeding me negative messages, which I would then in turn believe and think of being reality. Again, I had no awareness around this. I wasn't able to put it into these terms. This is something that I learned a bit later on once I came to the program. But this combination of feeling different and awkward within myself and not wanting to belong when I didn't want to belong, but really wanting to belong, but being made to feel different, this really odd dichotomy was something that, as I said, is the foundation my spiritual malady, together with this voice that keeps feeding me messages about my environment, about people around me. So, I would always think that people would say bad things around me, or be slightly paranoid, that I'd be unpopular or this or that. And so there's always this sense of, dis-ease, as we say, of not feeling right within myself and not being right within myself. And it didn't take me a long time to figure out that if I used certain substances when I was in my teens, that this would alleviate this. Again, it was disguised as party. It was disguised as being, I went through this very, very long and probably really tedious phase for the rest of humanity, of being quite arty and, black rimmed glasses and sort of black turtleneck jumpers and reading a lot of philosophers and things. And it was disguised as these things, as a party thing, or as sort of another way of being different. But really what it was is that I was medicating this sense of doom that I carried with me at all times, this incredible pessimism when I was looking towards my future, and this sense of being somewhat lost and forlorn. That's really the way I felt for most of my life. And not that there weren't any good times in there. Of course, there were plenty of them too. But when everything went quiet, that's what I returned to. And as I said, I discovered pretty quickly that if I drink on this, or if I smoke weed on this, or and as I found then out, if I use any kind of substance that is a stimulant, that's what really does me. That is what really will alleviate the sense of doom and of being unwell within myself. And I'm like, oh, finally, I'm feeling all right. And there was a sense of relief. The book speaks of ease and comfort. I think relief was really the way I felt most of the time. And it didn't take a long time for it to become a real problem, Also around this time, so this would be my early 20s. And before that, probably sort of from about 15 or 16 years onwards, my agnosticism was born, right? I rejected my parents' faith. My parents are Italians, they're Catholic. And I've never really, thankfully, I've not had any abuse or anything, and I wasn't even made to go to church all that much or anything like that. But somehow deep, deep, deep within myself, I rejected this sense of God, this world that, quote unquote, he had made, and anything that had anything to do with that. I wanted no part of this. Again, obviously, I had no real awareness around this. And I ran my life into the ground pretty early in my mid-20s, and my mental health was so shot to pieces to the point that I actually stopped using drugs by myself, because I had just, well, as I said, run myself into the ground, and I was able to stop. I wasn't a well man, but I was able to stop, and I was full of, well, I was sitting in psychiatrist offices most of the time. I was in a lot of therapy and in heaps of pain and in antidepressants and this, that, and the other. And I'm not trashing any of those things, of course. Medical attention is really, really important, and mental health is, and being, what's the word I'm looking for? Having treatment, receiving treatment for these things is really, really important. I'm not trashing that at all. On the contrary, I think it's very useful. But what I mean by that is that once I had removed the drugs and the alcohol, I wasn't suddenly well, right? On the contrary, everything that had been pushed down came to the fore, and I was in a lot more pain, really, for quite a long time. But at the same time, I started being, I developed this interest in books from Eckhart Tolle and other spiritual teachers, and I didn't even put two and two together that this was another way of looking at God, or another way of looking at this world that had, well, that was spiritual. I didn't even put two and two together. I mean, as you can hear, my unawareness is, was quite something. But I was able to one, not use drugs anymore. And to a degree, I don't know why that is. I think it is also because my disease went dormant, but it is also because, one, I had this newfound interest. Two, I learned to meditate. Three, so in other words, I connected, in our words today, connected to a power greater than myself, even though I wouldn't have been able to put it into those words. And I didn't understand that this was one of the reasons why I was able not to return to the drugs. And three, I was always surrounded by spiritual people somehow. There was always friends and who were really quite spiritual, and they were always with me. And it wasn't until I was in my early 40s that I returned back to drugs, and trauma had come into my life, and we'd lost an unborn child. And on the back of that, and all my agnosticism and all those things that I still had with me, returned to my life, returned to the fore, and I ended up starting using cocaine again. And it didn't immediately take me down the kind of route where I'd be using all the time, but I started thinking about it at all times. It was really, really odd. Even though I only used every weekend or second weekend, I ended up thinking about it all day long. And then within a fairly short amount of time, I ended up using every weekend, then every 2 or 3 days. And I was a full-on binge user. And in other words, whenever I did use, it was an absolute shit show. It was a catastrophe. Ended up having these really awful blackouts where, I'd start using, and I was only going to use a little bit, but I was going to buy something for maybe next Friday, and it was Wednesday or Tuesday, and I every time I started using, I ended up getting into this car without brakes. And I ended up in situations where if things went well, I'd wake up in a different room of the house. I don't know what I've done for the last 6 hours. Have I, is the car still outside? Is the dog okay? All those sort of things. And I obviously realized I had a massive problem, and I started looking for solutions. And whenever I was in a really terrible hangover, I'd kind of look around on, and I'd Google cocaine problem or something like that, because I was very aware, that I had a real problem here. But every time I sort of landed on the Cocaine Anonymous pages, it said that, one, we abstain from all mind-altering substances, and I could not envisage a life where I would not even drink. And two, step 3, that we turned our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. And my agnosticism was so deep that it kept me out of the rooms for maybe another good 2 years, 18 months to 2 years. And it was only on the back of an overdose, a pretty dramatic one, that I had no choices left, where I knew I was either going to do something about this or it was going to kill me. So I came into the rooms, and because I was so beaten by this, because I had tried on my own willpower to stop, I had hypnotherapy, I had counseling on top of it, I had all sorts of things. I ran a half marathon. I tried all of these things, and all of them didn't keep me sober. They didn't keep me clean. I would always return to it. I was able to put it down for a week or so, and then I'd get back to it. And it was always a worse catastrophe than the last time I had used. And so when I came into the rooms, I was just about open enough to hear this message that has kept me well ever since, thankfully. But I had to work really quite hard for it, because my agnosticism, this idea that I am an alien being in this world amongst all these other people, and that I live in a hostile world, was really so deeply entrenched in me. And I did my first set of steps, and I was able to stay sober, but I was still here and there quite unwell, and I tripped up over step 3, really. It's not a surprise. I had put my prejudice to one side, but I hadn't really properly dealt with it. And eventually it required another set of steps, and another step 4. And in that second step 4, after I had got rid of all the other bits of my first step four, which I did. The first one, I did it to the best of my ability, but I wasn't maybe ready to face it properly. My second step four was only on God and on nothing else but God, or higher power, if you prefer that word, or universe, or love, life. And what it really came down to was really quite simple, but it's that deep, deep, deep realization within myself that I had formerly had the belief that all the good things that had come to me, I had made. Somehow I had forged them for myself, self-reliance. I always used to say that the good things that had come to me, they were like I had got them like squeezing blood out of a stone. That's the way it felt. That's the amount of effort that it required for good things to come to me. And my anger was with God, that everything that was bad in my life was clearly God's fault, apart from all the wars and all the other things. I mean, the book puts it so wonderfully, doesn't it? You know, here we looked at this world of warring individuals and warring tribes. And it wasn't, as I said, until my second step forward that I really got this realization deep down in my heart. We speak of open-mindedness. I always think of it as being open-heartedness. In my heart, to realize that it was exactly the other way around, that I was the root cause of the troubles in my life. That the book, as the book says, we put ourselves in a position to be heard by decisions based on self. And that all the good things that had come were given to me by the grace of what we can call God, or as I said, the universe, life. I used to be quite uptight about using the word God. Now I use it just as much as I use the word life or love or universe or mystery. Herb K brought me onto the word mystery, which is lovely because for someone like me, who tries to understand everything with my head, the word mystery is really, really good because it relieves me of the idea that I have to get my head around this, or around something that I will never be able to get my head around. It was my second step four. It was my second set of steps that really brought me this relief that I used to experience when I used to drugs. This relief of not being so burdened with myself, of not believing that this voice in my head is who I truly am. And this relief around not swimming upstream any longer, of being able to go with the flow. And I have found so much happiness and so much fulfillment in my heart since that day, or since those days. It was gradual, so I would have wished for a white light experience, ta-da, Shazam, and all of a sudden, I am well. It's not the way it happened. I sort of had to, by showing willingness and a little bit of open-mindedness and open-heartedness, I chipped away at this agnosticism and got well through that. And my life is so different today. Apart from, well, funnily enough, actually, from the outside looking in, you wouldn't think it. I live in the same flat. Thankfully, my wife is still with me. The car's still outside. The dog's okay. So all looks as it did before, really. But I am a changed person on the inside, not just because I don't drink and use drugs anymore. I don't swim upstream anymore. I'm able to go with the flow, and I just have found so much gratitude, something that I cultivate every day, so much gratitude for what I have and what I'm being given, for the people in my life, and a sense of fulfillment and purpose, which I was previously lacking. I understand now that my purpose was to be here to help others, be available for others. And I was never able to be that person beforehand. And my sense of doom and my sense of disease has been relieved. Not just my obsession of wanting to drink and use drugs, but my sense of not being right with this world.
Thank you, Silvio. Wonderful to hear you. Wonderful to get to know you a little better. Thank you for sharing with us.